Welcome to the Nosey Gardener channel, and today we're here in Wolfboro overlooking Lake Wentworth, and we are with Tonya Albee. She is here on this beautiful property, which was her grandfather's property, and we'll touch on that. But I met Tonya at a Wolfboro Garden Club meeting recently where she was talking about pollinators and the importance of that, and pesticide awareness and changes coming. So we're going to tour her pollinator garden here. We're going to talk about strategies for fall cleanup to be better with nature, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to just give us a little history right here?
Sure. As you said, this was my grandfather, Alan Albee's property, so from the Alan A Resort. And about a half-mile from here is the Albee Beach, which is now a town beach, but his property extended all the way down to the 1810 house when it was the resort, and had 100 cottages on the properties. The property that I have is his original, well, no, his second primary residence. He owned the 1810 house originally, and then he built this property in the early 60s.
Okay.
And then after he passed away, his second wife built another home down on the point across from this property, and sort of left this one here. So we unexpectedly inherited this one, and then it took the last 5 years we've been restoring it because it needed major restoration. My grandfather was a big gardener, but back in the 60s, that was the age of DDT, so he had his own DDT truck.
Oh, wow.
Which is completely contrary to the world I'm pushing right now and encouraging helping the pollinators, but they were unaware.
Right.
So we've moved on from that. And, you know, his gardens, because they were let go, he had a lot of weeping willows and things like that. But they're a weak tree, so they didn't make it through.
Okay.
So all the plantings had to be sort of redone, restored, and now they're on the focus of having native plants, pesticide-free, organic, you know, local ecotypes, so that they're grown in New Hampshire, so they're the best for our soils.
That's great. And you can't see it. We'll swing around. We're right on this. It's called the Bridge Falls Path, which is the abandoned railroad, which is now a pathway and a trail. As a matter of fact, there's people coming by now. So if you walk on the trail in Wolfboro, you can see this portion of the property and get some inspiration here and see how beautiful it is. And you just did all this last year?
No, we've been working on it for the last 5 years. However, last year we did a major garden push to get the gardens done. So we expanded them by about 50% and tried to finish them off so there'd be more pollinator success at that point. So what you're seeing now is bigger, more focus on more pollinator plants with the idea that we could attract more pollinators.
Okay, and I see some bees. I'm going to pick up the handheld now, and we're going to walk around. I'll follow you, and then you'll just kind of tell us whatever that we need to know.
Sounds great. Okay, so our focus on this property is native plants, and we use as our Bible of inspiration Doug Tallamy's book, Nature's Best Hope, which we recommend to everybody if they haven't got a copy. But for example, these boxwoods are not a native plant, but we wanted to edge the garden. The goal is not 100% natives, because you still want to have your design and your impact visually work to be what you want. So that's a non-native. However, all of this goldenrod, which by the way does not give you hay fever, this is all a native plant that's a total bee magnet all fall long. Takes no maintenance at all, very handy plant, and is necessary. It's a keystone species. A keystone species means that it's a plant that if we see an alteration in our environment to this plant here, we know all the other species are suffering. So that's why this is also a very critical plant in the garden.
It's like a house of cards.
Sure is.
So to speak.
And these are, you know, our fall asters. So we try to do the native New England smooth fall asters to attract bees. Fall food sources are really critical to them. And when we're working on the fall food sources, I don't cut back my plants. So you're Nosey Gardener, I'm Messy Gardener.
Okay.
Because here you'll see, if you look at these cone flowers, that the heads are still there and they look a little bit terrible. And I used to cut them all off because I like everything neat and clean. Well, that's not such a great plan, because there's full of seed heads, and all winter long the birds need food. And so they'd prefer wild food compared to anything we put in our feeders. Hence, you'll see that I'm leaving that. Shrubs, for all that we have lots of flowers, as you see the rest of the garden, shrubs are the workhorses where flowers are the glory. So you still need your shrubs in here to ground, you know, your designs and to really do some great work. This is a non-native willow, but it's a willow. It's because willows are really necessary, and I couldn't find any on the rail trail, so I wanted to make sure we planted some willows. This is a native grass. This is little blue stem. And so this is a wonderful plant because it takes no maintenance. Leave it just like this until spring and then cut it back. And the birds will appreciate the little seed heads on the top.
Okay.
But little blue stem, there's also a big blue stem, is handy for color, but also it's nice and polite with its shape. So when you want form in your garden, a little blue stem is a great plant to choose. Not only because it's native, but because sometimes it gives you that round shape and the softness of grass that you might want.
So I've got a question about switchgrass, because I have a lot of switchgrass and you see it in other gardens. Would that be a same beneficial thing to leave up for the winter?
Most of the animals in our environment really need our native plants. So it depends on what you have exactly. I'd have to know the Latin name to look it up.
All right.
And if it's not a native, then they can't get the same food benefits. It's sort of like if you eat at McDonald's, it's not the same nutrition as having your mom's Sunday dinner. You know, they might have the same calories, not the same nutrition. Same for our world out here. And over here, we were talking about bees before, and this little house, I've sent back the bees that lived in there, because we had leafcutter bees. But honeybees are not a native bee. So what we do is we rent native bees from a woman who overwinters them for us and cleans out their habitat and sends us mason bees and leafcutter bees in the spring. And then we put them out at the appropriate time when it's over 50 degrees and the right temperatures. And then we will be putting in more bees in our environment. The ones that don't go back in there, you know, most of our bees are solitary. They don't go into big hives, or, you know, and they don't sting everybody. They're not that kind of creature. But these bees do more pollinating than honeybees. And it's not that I'm against honeybees. It's just that honeybees are not our native bee.
What about this one?
This little guy, he's a bumblebee. And bumbles are native too, but UNH did a study on the bumbles going by because they're so adorable. And showing how we have already had one extinction in New Hampshire to our bumblebees. And of the ones that we have left, they've all lost significant populations. So that's why our focus goes so strongly on this. So if you're wondering, well, what can you do specifically that would might be immediate impact? One would be stop spraying, get rid of the pesticides. That is unequivocally one of the biggest things you can do. And then, you know, beyond that, you know, there's some other steps. Like at night, you can turn off your night lights, or if you're worried about security, put them on a motion sensor, because the birds are dying because of lack of food, and the lack of food is the result of, you know, the caterpillars are dying, and that means the moths get stuck in the light circles and so forth. So that's another biggie. It's real easy to implement, and it saves you money, you know. And then the other thing is, because it's fall and I'm holding my little oak leaf in my hand, I used to clean up all my oak leaves and my lawn looked like it had been vacuumed. Nothing on my lawn.
I know.
But that was years ago when I realized that all of my spring pollinators are living in here, and my lunar moth and my frogs and toads. All these guys love this stuff, and it protects even the little birds in winter. That this is so critical. The leaves haven't fallen because, of course, the oak leaf is a stubborn leaf and he likes to fall last. Put them in your garden beds unmulched. Be gentle. There's little creatures in there. Don't blow them because they're this big. You know, that really upsets them and kills them. So leaving all of that leaf litter is really a big deal. You know, getting your native bees, that really works.
And I know Doug Tallamy is big about the oak tree.
Yes, this is our #1 tree.
Is it Keystone? Is that what he called it, or is it a pillar? I can't remember.
Keystone is always, think about your bridge with a keystone in the middle. That's what he means by that. They are unequivocally the most important tree in our forest by a mile. They support almost 1,000 creatures.
It is amazing.
And it is amazing. So the oak tree has so much importance. The white oak is the most significant. The red oak is second. But that's why, as much as you might curse them like I did when I used to rake, now I realize they're my friends because they do so much.
That's a good strategy.
I leave all of these dead seeds for the birds, you know. I have more goldenrod here.
So then in the spring, all the seeds will be gone, and then you trim everything in the spring?
I do, but not down to the ground. I trim down to about 15 inches because anything with a hollow stem, insects go in there and they have their babies, and that's protection for them. So leave all your hollowed stem plants at about 15 inches. The only thing I would cut down in fall are some of my non-natives, like my lavender. You know, I cut it down to the little mound because it's not a native and it's not providing any habitat or anything. So I'm a little ruthless with that. But things that another core plant, this is a service berry.
Yes, love those.
And, you know, your red-winged blackbirds, your waxwings adore these things. But this was a great one because it's not so huge. Some people say, well, oak tree is way too big for me.
Yeah,
I think it comes
manageable in a bush and a tree. The tree they did at Maker's Mill. They did the service berry trees there.
It was a great choice.
The shrub is nice.
Yep. And so that's a good one to have. You know, you can have, I plant like the marigolds on the front banking of this. Maybe we can take you around to that.
And people can see this is the rail trail, the Bridge Falls path right here.
And the marigolds, of course, are an annual, but part of the great things about the marigolds that I love is when I take these little dead brown heads, I'm a frugal gardener too. In here's all these seeds. So I put them on my kitchen counter for about 2 weeks to dry out once I pick a brown head.
Right.
And then I've got all these marigolds next year. I don't have to do anything fancy because I'm not fond of growing from seed unless it's a marigold, because you just sprinkle them in the sand and this is what you get.
So that was all from seed? That's impressive.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And just sprinkling them in, about 1/4 inch of dirt over them. So you can go find your marigolds, and if somebody needs them, they can call me. I get a whole lot I can pick.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. You can see that we qualified for from the Wildlife Federation as certified wildlife habitat.
Yes, very nice.
And that's just a commitment to certain habits like no pesticides, native plants, things like that, to become certified. And then within the garden, some of the other key plants that the pollinators absolutely love. The catmint is famously successful.
Yes.
Agastache, that's the spiky looking purpley stuff that's gone by. Another big one.
I see the bees are in there. Now, what type of bees are left in here?
Mostly just bumblebees right now.
Okay.
And we had a severe shortage of all the other bees this year anyway. And the leaf cutters have gone into hibernation. But those other little spiky things are liatris. That's another good one.
Yes, okay.
Then that purpley thing sticking up, that's the blue stem again.
Oh, yeah, it looks, you can see the color more there.
Yep. And then behind it, you can see those are perennial sunflowers, which are another great one for food for the winter. All those little buds.
Is that white plastic thing anything?
It's a big thing.
Oh,
because we have a drought going on.
Okay.
And so all the little pollinators, they have to have water, but they can't go drink in their lake. They're too small. So we provide water sources. And so we got that, that feeds chickens, but we put corks all the way around it, or little stones. And then when the bees are thirsty, they can go into that and get a little drink of water.
Right, without drowning.
That's right. That's right. And we don't want to drown them. We also want to make sure they're okay and have all the water they need. But here's, so here's some bees right here. Here's a little bumblebee. And he's, who have we got here? I'm not quite sure which species that is. It's a little chilly for them, but there's no honeybees here right now. But they come and go too, because they've got a big distance that they'll fly. Some ground covers. On the spring bulbs, I think that's one of the other things that we work hard on the spring bulbs, is that I mentioned to the garden club that I've only found one source in the United States that does organic spring bulbs that are not treated with the neonics, the pesticide that's killing all our insects. And that's from Brent and Becky's, if anybody needs to find that. On the raking, I don't rake any of this. And you can see it's very rough.
Before we go in there, I just got a question.
Sure. No, this is an aster. That's a fall aster.
That's an aster. And then this all is just is a perennial.
Yes.
All of those.
Except the only thing that's annuals are my marigolds.
Marigolds and the cabbage.
And the cabbage.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually this silver stuff, a friend just gave those to me, so I stuck them in yesterday.
Right. Yeah. Those asters are quite large.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. And you built this arbor.
Yep. So on this I put, like the vine that I mixed a few vines together, but this is specifically for the swallowtail, because it's the Dutchman's pipe.
Oh, okay.
And they grow only on this vine. So I try to find the species where they need certain habitat, just like the monarch has to have milkweed.
Right.
This butterfly has to have this vine. But when I talk about shrubs, some of the key shrubs that people should look at instituting is any viburnum is a wonderful native.
Okay.
And it works as an understory. So when you've got those shady places that are tricky.
Yes.
And the other one's oak leaf hydrangea.
Yes.
Those two are great choices for your understory natives in shade.
Yes, very nice.
Dappled shade, dappled light. They're pretty hardy. And during a drought, they work out pretty well because they don't take as much water anyway. They're much hardier than our importing some fancy thing that's been treated with chemicals.
I like the boxwood edge.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a nice contrast, and it's green all year.
Yep. Yep. Our lawn, we dug it up last spring when we were redoing the gardens, and then we were overseeding with clover, and then we got hit with a drought, so we're going to have to overseed again and start again next spring on the lawn, but we don't encourage lawns because, of course, lawns are a monoculture and doesn't support much life, and then it takes fertilizer, then it leaches into the lake, and on it goes. So we work with clover and sedges for lawns, but have to start again. But that's okay. And if you wanted to see like the oak leaf hydrangeas, that would be an example of the oak leaf hydrangea.
Yeah, it's a beautiful leaf.
And the little tree there that's also a great understory that looks a lot like a Japanese maple is a spice bush.
Spice bush.
And that's going to get to be about 8 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
And you can trim it so it looks very much like a Japanese maple, which is pretty cool. And those are all oak leaf hydrangeas back there.
Very nice.
And leaving the woodland so that it's rough, fallen logs, all of those things are habitat producers for all our creatures.
Yes.
So that's why to some people it might look messy, but to me it looks like heaven.
Right. I'm just going to pan up so everyone can see how
The oak
it's a very tall, wooded area.
This fountain was original to my grandfather, so we've been restoring this. And this year, for the first time in 65 years, it had water flowing out of the fountain.
That must have been lovely.
It was. It's pretty wonderful to hear it. Even though we're here and we hear the wind and everything, it's just beautiful. And it was an act of love to restore this thing because it's a good thing my other half is an engineer. These people had their heads missing. They look like they had a serial killer. You know, they're all body parts, but he put them all back together.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you just leave all the acorns and then just let them be on the ground.
Well, on acorns, they can grow into an oak tree. So I don't really want an oak tree right in the middle of the lawn. So sometimes...
So you might rake those?
Yeah, but generally the squirrels come by and do the work for me. So I wait till they're done. And then if they aren't going to do it, then I'll pick them up. And even in the spring, I pull some of the little oak trees that are starting to grow. So if anybody needs an oak tree, I've got some fantastic little starters over here. I'll give them to anybody that wants them. And on this side, we have more of the same flowers that you saw, but the big one that's in here that really produces results for us is the clethra.
Okay.
And the clethra smells like magnolia.
Which plant is that?
It's the shrubs that are, they have the, see the pointy thing sticking out of them?
Okay.
There's 3 there and there's 3 more over there. But they smell like a gardenia. They're just beautiful.
Really?
And the bees love them, and they're a native. They make a mini clethra, and they make the ones we have, which are like 6 feet tall, you know, when they are full grown.
Okay.
So they're really pretty terrific.
And you leave all of this, you don't cut anything back?
Well, as I said,
except for the lavender.
Yeah, and sometimes, well, I'll cut the Russian sage because that's another non-native. Doesn't do anything. So I'll cut back my natives stay put.
Okay.
And then in the spring, when it's 50 degrees, that's when I'll start like moving stuff around a little bit more, because I'll know that the pollinators had a chance to come out and find their spots and move on from there. But I don't want to bother them till then. And even walking on the leaves, you know, I'm becoming a phobic because sometimes I'm worrying I'm stepping on a baby, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So that's why I start piling up leaves by hand. We never mow and scrunch them all up. We also don't blow our leaves because, as I mentioned, it really affects them too. So we work on all of that kind of stuff.
What is your thought on the pine needles?
Pine needles are good mulch, great mulch. You know, sometimes I'll rake because up near the house I have a bunch of pines, and so I get enough pine needles out of that to make some great garden mulch on the bed that runs along our porch. Okay. So that's where I use the pine needles.
Very nice.
So, you know, that works well for it. And then there's a local person, if somebody does need to fertilize their gardens, because, you know, if you need to add some supplements to the soil, you've tested it, then there's the man in Tamworth Farmers Market. It's called Again and Again Homestead. And he has organic, it's made out of wool, leftover wool from the sheep shearing. And it's fantastic. I use it in a couple places that our soil content was off. And it's a great source. And it will not hurt the waterway.
Well, thank you, Tonya, for giving us a tour and talking about your passion of insects and bees and fall cleanup and native plants. But tell us about some of the things you're working on in your retirement now, your new endeavors.
We started a group called the Six-Legged Society, and what we're dedicated to is really saving the pollinators and education and outreach. And that has enabled us to work with John McDonald, our Wolfboro's state rep, to implement 2 bills into the legislation this session, which is 2025. And the first bill would be to, per Doug Tallamy's recommendation, was to stop the treated corn seeds that are being planted because of the devastation that that's creating into our waterways. And we depend upon water for our tourist industry and everything else. And there's been no evidence that these treated seeds provide any more yield to the corn farmers, because it's silage corn, not the sweet corn we eat, but silage corn. And so we're hoping that that makes its way through and we can stop, you know, killing all the mayflies for the trout fishermen and things like that. The second bill, which is also tied together with this, would change the neonics, which is neonicotinoids for long version, to restricted use. And that definition change on the pesticide board level would mean that professional applicators could still use this pesticide. However, household use, which is where they find the most damage, and people using 1 squirt's good, 2 squirts are better, which is not true, but they can't read the big label or don't. So this would restrict that. So it would be hopefully doing that, and it would also restrict turf use, meaning golf courses, because that's another runoff source, big parks, things like that, where it runs off into waterways. So that legislation, if anybody has the desire to, contact John McDonald and support it, or go to our website, which is sixleggedsociety.com.
I'll put a link in the comments too.
Okay. All right.
So
and then people can contact, because we have a petition we're starting.
Okay.
And anybody that can help us, we need all the help we can get and all the education we can get. So if you turn out your lights, maybe you could mention to your neighbors they might want to think about the same thing for the same reason. And going back to the windshield effect always seems to help people understand our mission.
Right.
Because that story came out at the garden club, which is, driving down the road when you were a kid and your windshield was covered with bugs. But what do you see today? And the answer is no bugs. Right. Because we're losing them so fast, more than half of them are gone. So that's what we're talking about.
All important things, but you're living it, you're doing it, you're practicing it. Clearly we can see it here, and the public can walk by on the rail trail and take a look. So it's a good time to maybe use this as an excuse not to do that heavy duty fall cleanup.
Exactly. Save a little money.
But then what do you do in the spring? You have all the leaves around. Do you do something in the spring with all of the leaves?
Well, I leave them in my garden bed, this year, because we redid our gardens, you don't see them, but they're good mulch. There's nothing wrong with them at all. Once it's over 50 degrees, if I've got more leaves like over my lawn than I want or whatever, I'll rake them, and then I'll just take them off into the woodlands or something like that and put them off there, just for the cleaner look on the lawn area where the clover's going. But that's about all you have to do. And then I'll cut back my perennials too in the spring when it's 50 degrees.
All right.
So there's a couple of spring steps,
There's plenty to do before it actually starts getting busy.
You just got to break and fall. Right. Unless you need some exercise, you want to rake for exercise.
I know raking is great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Tonya. Thanks for the tour.
Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Okay.